Trauma bonding. Today, we are breaking down the powerful, invisible science that explains why it is so incredibly hard to leave a relationship that's hurting you.
You've heard it. Maybe you've even thought it yourself when you see someone in a bad situation. Why don't they just leave?
Well, the answer is shocking, and it has absolutely nothing to do with weakness. It's because their brain is chemically addicted to the abuser. Yeah, you heard that right. Addicted.
So how in the world does this happen? We're talking about a literal hijacking of the brain's chemistry. Let's get into it. Okay, first up, you've got oxytocin. You probably know it as the bonding hormone. During those intense love-bombing phases, this stuff floods the system, forging this incredibly powerful sense of trust and connection. It is a primal bond.
Then there's dopamine. And you really need to listen to this part, because this is the exact same chemical that drives cocaine addiction. It's the craving neurotransmitter. It's that rush you get from the unpredictable highs of the relationship, and it makes you desperately crave the next one.
Now here is the real paradox. You'd think the fear and the stress would break the bond, right? Wrong. The stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, they actually make the bond stronger. The brain gets hooked on the feeling of relief that comes after the terror, creating an addiction to the entire chaotic cycle.
And you have to understand, this isn't an accident. This chemical addiction is manufactured. It's a system, a cycle, deliberately put in place by the abuser.
The tool they use, it's called intermittent reinforcement. All this means is that the reward, the affection, the kindness, it only comes occasionally and completely at random. This makes that tiny scrap of kindness feel unbelievably powerful, making the brain crave it even more desperately. And it works in a very predictable cycle. First, step one, you get that intense affection, the love bombing. Then, bam, step two, cruelty and devaluation. And just when you're at your lowest, you get step three, that tiny, sporadic hit of kindness. That's the intermittent reward. That's the dopamine hit that keeps you hooked. Honestly, the best way to think about it is a gambler at a slot machine. They keep pulling that lever, losing over and over again, all for the chance of that one unpredictable win. That's exactly what's happening here. You get hooked on the maybe.
So you might be asking, why are some people more vulnerable to this? Well, a lot of the time, the blueprint for this gets laid down way back in childhood. It often comes from something called disorganized attachment. This happens when the person who is supposed to be your safe space, your caregiver, is also the person you are terrified of. Imagine the confusion for a child. That becomes their internal template for what love is supposed to feel like.
Think about it. A secure caregiver is a reliable source of comfort. Simple. But a traumatizing caregiver is a source of both comfort and fear. When that happens, love and terror get completely tangled up in the brain. And that wiring can unconsciously push a person to seek out that same chaotic dynamic in their adult relationships. So, knowing all this, how do you actually recognize a trauma bond, either in yourself or in someone else? Let's talk about the red flags. So, are you constantly defending your partner to friends who are just horrified? Do you feel this deep, unshakable loyalty to someone who betrays you over and over again? Or maybe you find yourself missing a relationship that you know was awful, a relationship that almost destroyed you. If any of that sounds familiar, it's a huge sign. It can mean that what horrifies other people doesn't even faze you anymore.
Which brings us right back to where we started. Once you understand that abuse literally hijacks the brain's most fundamental wiring for survival, the question is no longer, why don't they just leave? The real question we should all be asking is it ever that simple?